Kryon. Don't take anything for granted in the new energy greetings, dearest ones. I am Kryon of Magnetic Service. Oh, here we are right at the Sphinx. Some of you are perceiving the energy. I'll talk about that in a moment, but I want to continue with some of the lessons I've given about the transition into the new energy. Some aspects of transitioning into the new energy have nothing to do with what you think others do. What we're about to say might surprise you. We've told you before, you cannot carry old energy into new energy and then expect it to work. That should be obvious. We've spoken to you about expectations at the beginning, and now we'll talk about another aspect. It seems similar, but it's called assumption. Don't make assumptions, yet you do. All of you do because you can't help it. That's where you come from. You take things for granted because they've always been that way. And then, when you enter a new energy, you carry the same old assumptions with you, and that doesn't work. And by doesn't work, I mean the things we've talked about. The second one, the laws of attraction, the conscious effort to pave the way with good intentions. Even those won't work as long as you're carrying assumptions with you. Before we even get to the Sphinx, let's talk about some assumptions. Here's one. Imagine you arrive in Egypt. You're new, maybe from a big Western city, and you see everyone honking their horns at everyone else, and you think, they're all angry at each other. Look at that. I don't want to be on this road. They're all out of their minds, and there's road rage everywhere. I know this because they're honking at each other. Honk, honk. That's an assumption, right? Until you immerse yourself in the culture, in the society, and you realize that while it might look like organized chaos, you hear the differences in the honks. The short ones mean, I'm here. Another short honk nearby means, thank you. I see you. And it's a constant flow because there are often no lines on the road, so they're constantly communicating their position to each other. Here I am. Here I am. Short honks, short honks. Watch out for the long ones. That's when they're angry. Did you know that? That's an assumption. You see two citizens of Cairo arguing in the street, and you get scared. They're shouting at each other. They're clearly angry. One gets right in the other's face, yelling, gesturing. You're about to call the police when they hug each other and laugh together. That's because they were negotiating. It's their culture. They act out their negotiations. Some play a part. Others enjoy it, but you almost called the police. Do you see how assumptions you make from one culture to another can get you into trouble? Think about the assumptions you make from one energy to another. An ancient energy of the planet, one that has existed for eons and eons, and you take this and that for granted. You can't then transfer those assumptions into an ascended energy, or even the beginning of one. Don't make assumptions. Let me tell you a deeper story. There's a very ancient archaeological dig, you could say. It's an archaeological dig in Bolivia called Tiahuanaco. It's one of the highest archaeological digs in the world, at over 12,000 feet altitude. My partner was there, and they had recently made discoveries by digging in the ground. The archaeologists there came from another culture, perhaps because Bolivians don't yet have the same refinement and culture as other cultures. Watch out. Now you have a different culture investigating a culture that doesn't belong to them. While digging, they found some very, very interesting objects. The objects were found in the same area, just meters apart from each other. One of them looked like it came from Asia. That's interesting. What does that mean? Another one looked like it came from Egypt. What does that mean? So the assumptions they make could very well change their history books. And here's the assumption, that there was some kind of market there where they sold objects and goods, and therefore there was evidence of trade with Japan, China, Egypt, and all those places, since those objects were found there. Let me tell you what they missed. I spoke with my partner on the ground where all this happened, and he remembers it. They didn't give the ancient Bolivians any credit for refinement, for elegance, for intelligence. What they had dug up was a museum. They had a museum because they had a culture that genuinely understood and respected the ancients who came from far away. And some of them had come from distant lands and had shown them this and that, and they had found this and that. It didn't belong to the land. It wasn't in a market. It was displayed like in a museum. What was the assumption? That ancient people weren't very intelligent, or that they had no elegance, because in our present day we have everything, while in ancient times they were a bit crude. Don't make assumptions. You are literally at the feet of what is perhaps the oldest sculpture on the planet. How old is the Sphinx? There's no definite answer. They don't know. But when you start observing it, there are some strange things, and I wanted to tell you about them so you can understand what is and isn't there. In Egypt, there are thousands of sphinxes. Small, medium-sized, so it's easy to identify the pattern of a sphinx. If you look at some of the early images of a sphinx when it was unearthed from the sand hundreds of years ago, you'll notice something very strange. The head is a different color from the body, which might indicate that the head was replaced. I'm here to tell you that's exactly what happened. And not by the original sculptor. It was, for example, the pharaohs, officials, or nobles who first unearthed it and wanted their own head placed on it, and they replaced it. It might not even have the head you see anymore, the one you've seen for years and say, "It's wonderful, isn't it?" Not even the right head. It's a bit oversized. Once it was a different color. And then the stories begin, the ones you might have heard in esoteric circles. There's a secret door on the side. There is a door on the side. It's been covered. It's not a secret. It's been opened many times to reinforce the inside of the Sphinx, which actually collapsed once. There's another story that there's a secret door on top of the head. There is a door there. It's not a secret. It's used to reinforce and rebuild the head so it wouldn't collapse and fall off. So much work has been done on this object, this very ancient and seemingly mysterious object, that very little of the original is visible. If there are esoteric secrets, things buried under, above, or around it, then they are esoteric. That means they would be multidimensional because everything has been technically examined. There's nothing hidden in 3D here. So why is there so much energy here? Why is it so attractive to so many people who want to be here, touch it, see it, and have their picture taken next to it? I'll tell you something, and you've never thought of it. Don't make assumptions about why you find it mysterious. It's not a spaceship. It represents the beginning of a new enlightened society. This is the oldest relic they have, representing the very beginning of those who believed in the afterlife, and in Ara, a god you believe in who is referred to as the Creator. This is the Creator you see and understand today. This represents the beginning of everything. That's why you're here, admiring something truly extraordinary. It was the beginning. It's timeless. No one knows how old it is. There was water here. No one knows that. Oh, there's evidence. The Nile was closer. Many things were different if you had been here back then. But as for the mystery, I'll tell you, the only mysterious thing is why you think it's mysterious. It's powerful. It's incredible. It's extraordinary. It's precious for what it represents. And if you're among those who perceive things, that's why you're here. To honor the beginning of a civilization 5,200 years ago, exactly at the time when the cosmic timeline aligns, the precession of the equinoxes, and what was happening and expected. You are all at the same crossroads. What will you build that someday someone will find? What if it's nothing physical? What if it has to do with a compassionate government, the first of its kind? What if it's something more? What if it's about inventions that will nourish humanity, the first of their kind? All of this falls within the scope of the coming years on this planet, and you are here to celebrate the first of these years and to be present at the beginning of the second. That's what I wanted to tell you. And so it is. From heart to soul, the path to liberation, freedom, the eternal cry of the soul. But what is the soul? And what does freedom entail? People often confuse heart and soul, when in reality they are distinct and different concepts, so it's useful to define them. After all, a journey to an unknown land goes well if it begins with a map, while it can fail without a guide. In these days of transformation, our physical bodies are gradually raising their frequency. When the time is right, we will physically enter fourth density existence, a higher realm where heart-centered consciousness is the basis of every thought. In today's world, characterized by third-density population, personal ambition often prevails over the common good. In the emerging heart-centered consciousness, however, due consideration is given to the impact one has on others, and win-win situations are sought. As the heart opens further, the door to spiritual awakening swings open. Once spirituality enters the picture, it becomes evident that the primary goal of the human experience is spiritual growth. Although at the soul level each person has a unique set of goals for their life, the primary purpose of all human life remains the same: spiritual growth. While spiritual awakening occurs in the developed stage of heart-centered awareness, the next step leads to immense illumination through awakening contact with the consciousness level of the soul. Your soul resides in the fifth density level, or the throat chakra. It is present at every moment in all the other levels of your consciousness as well, including daily physical awareness. But people rarely turn inward to pay it proper attention during a busy day. Within your soul are held the memories of every person you have been, every experience you have lived, and the blueprint you outlined for this life before it began. Life blueprints are continuously managed at the soul level because they need adjustments to stay on track despite changing circumstances. A life blueprint is a map of pre-established destiny, but it needs continuous adaptations, and the physical mind is supported by the soul's intuitive inspiration. The more in touch you are with your inner being, the easier it will be for you to stay true to your life blueprint. By cultivating awareness of your soul, you move closer and closer to mastering everything physical life has to offer and to completing your reincarnation cycle. When you surpass the need for further reincarnations, you access the soul realms and operate from there with all the freedom that comes from such an unlimited existence. As a soul, you are able to move through space and time at will, with the same ease a pianist's hands glide up and down the keyboard. You exist in a world of beauty, rich with infinite shades of color and harmonic sounds that inspire. Your connection with the divine is open, and this fills you with constant joy. Your soul family, hundreds of other souls you love most, can be in contact with you whenever you wish. There is no loneliness in such a connected and supportive world. You will learn the deepest mysteries of life without having to chase any of the needs and duties that now take up so much of your time in the physical world. The ultimate journey from heart to soul can begin now with the determination to develop awareness of your soul while still in the physical body and to take rapid steps toward the liberation that awaits us all. In the grand scheme of things, what matters more than anything else is your progress toward higher consciousness while living in a physical body. Lady Archeia Faith. Wisdom and purity of thought. The dreams Kathleen and had last night are nothing short of interesting. This is an interpretation, an entire world of artificial control. For all intents and purposes, the planet Earth collapses under its own weight due to impure thoughts and poor management of reality, stemming from the attempt to control people and the artificial world they live in. Her dream mirrors current Earth reality, where the dark forces have failed and light has prevailed in truth and fact. It is well known that the successes of light we are witnessing today on planet Earth have been achieved through the sheer perseverance of powerful beings of light, the enlightened ones. Thanks to their commitment and their awareness, purity of thought has been achieved. My twin flame, Archangel Michael, is the living testimony of purity of thought. Purity of thought is the essence of love for reality. A loving, aware heart will easily perform miracles in every moment, because that is where momentum and potential are born. Thanks to purity of thought, we can easily orient our consciousness toward every wonderful act of kindness we perform. We activate purity of thought through the heart chakra. Heart consciousness becomes reality, and the dominant process of every inner thought when we engage with diligence. We must persist to prevail. Purity of thought might be the primary, fundamental ingredient missing from many of our endeavors. Purity of thought is the only secret to emerging and attaining enlightenment. Buddha knew purity of thought. Jesus knew it. The Dalai Lama knows it. Thich Nhat Hanh knows it. And many, many others. The most powerful and successful people on earth know the power of positivity through their diligence and purity of thought. Our Creator has given us pure hearts so that we might listen to Him. Within the human heart resides the prevalence of all wonderful realities. This represents an evolutionary and revolutionary breakthrough for humanity. Adaptation in its highest form. I love you all, Lady Faith. The discomfort you can't explain. Perceiving what goes unsaid today, I want to pick up a topic I first talked about in 2015. That strange, overwhelming feeling of chaos an empath can experience, emotionally and even physically, when faced with inauthentic energy. Let me start with a question. Have you ever spent time with someone who seems perfectly pleasant on the surface, kind, polite, even charming, but inside you feel a strange sensation? A sense of unease, of restlessness, maybe even confusion, as if your thoughts can't seem to line up? If that sounds familiar, there's a reason. For an empath, what's said rarely matters. What matters is what you perceive deep down. You sense a discrepancy, that subtle but unmistakable gap between the image a person projects of themselves and what's actually happening beneath the surface. It's like your inner radar silently sounds the alarm. Something doesn't add up. Now, if you're not only empathic but also have autistic traits, that experience can feel even more intense and disorienting. Why? Because you often deeply rely on consistency and clarity. When someone's words, tone, body language, and underlying emotional state don't match, it creates a kind of internal static. You don't just sense the inauthenticity, you try to process it, make sense of it, and your system can't reconcile the contradiction. That's where shutdown comes in. For many empaths, encountering inauthenticity triggers a kind of protective shutdown reaction. Words get stuck. Thoughts scatter. Memory feels unreliable. It's not weakness. It's overload. Your system is trying to filter conflicting signals while also protecting you from whatever underlying emotional current you've picked up on. For those with autistic traits, this feeling can be even more pronounced. The brain is already working hard to process social interactions in a structured way, and suddenly it's faced with something that doesn't follow any clear pattern. The result? A kind of internal short circuit. You might find yourself going quiet, withdrawing, or feeling like you've temporarily lost access to your usual way of communicating. I remember back when I was a hairdresser, there were clients who seemed absolutely lovely, friendly, warm, easy to talk to. Yet while working with them, I'd feel awful, heavy, restless, almost uncomfortable in my own skin. At the time, I couldn't understand it. It made no logical sense. Later, when I understood my empathic nature, it all became clear. I wasn't reacting to what they were showing me. I was sensing what they were hiding. Pain, insecurity, resentment, sadness, all hidden behind polite conversation and a well-practiced smile. That's the thing. Inauthenticity shows up in many forms, and it's not always driven by ill intent. Sometimes it's just survival. Here are some examples that might trigger that shut-down feeling. Someone who desperately wants to be liked, so they become overly accommodating or perform kind gestures instead of genuinely feeling them. A person who harbors deep anger or resentment but presents as calm and composed. Someone marked by a difficult childhood, who masks their insecurity with bravado or emotional distance. A person who has constructed an entirely new personality to hide parts of themselves they believe won't be accepted. Excessive or insincere praise that feels hollow rather than genuine. Stories that seem exaggerated or made up to get attention or approval, and your reactions might look something like this. Avoiding them, even if they haven't outwardly done anything wrong. Difficulty speaking, words won't come, or what you say feels disjointed. A feeling of heaviness and stomach discomfort that lingers until you leave. Feeling drained, confused, or even physically unwell after spending time with them. A confused mix of liking the person and feeling uncomfortable with the sensations in their presence. A sense of powerlessness, like you can't find your balance around them. Here's where it gets a little more complicated. The fact that you can sense inauthenticity in others doesn't mean you're completely immune to it yourself. That's not a criticism. It's simply human. Sometimes the discomfort you feel isn't just about them. It's also about recognition. You might sense something in them that mirrors something you've had to repress in yourself. That's not always easy to accept. Because the truth is, most of us at some point have learned to hide parts of ourselves. We've smiled when we were down. We've pretended to like things we didn't. We've smoothed over our rougher edges to be accepted. We've played a part to get through situations. In small doses, that's just part of life. But when it becomes a way of being, when the mask becomes the norm, it creates a disconnection. And sensitive people feel that disconnection acutely, both in others and in themselves. This is especially true if you're empathic and wired to notice patterns and incongruities. You don't just sense the emotional layer, you also detect the structural misalignment. And your system doesn't like unresolved contradictions. It seeks coherence, truth, something solid to stand on. When that element is missing, it can feel like walking on unstable ground. That's why authenticity is so important to sensitive people. Not in a performative sense, a say what you want kind of way, but in a concrete, honest alignment between inner and outer worlds. Because when we bury parts of ourselves, especially traits we've judged as unacceptable, they don't disappear. They go underground. And from there, they influence our thoughts, reactions, and relationships in ways we don't always understand. Commonly hidden traits include anger, jealousy, fear of rejection, resentment. These things don't come from nowhere. They often have roots in deeply human experiences, being hurt or treated unfairly, growing up in an environment where anger was present and absorbing it, feeling overlooked or compared to others, experiencing rejection, especially early in life. What starts as a small emotional reaction can, over time, turn into something deeper, something we feel we have to hide in order to be accepted. But hiding comes at a price. Because when you're disconnected from a part of yourself, you also become more sensitive to that same disconnection in others. It becomes louder, more jarring, harder to tolerate. That's why it's important to work on your inner self. Not to become perfect, but to become whole. The elders, the time has come. Have you considered that life now flows quickly? Have you recognized that time has come to move into greater motion? Many things are not considered when you move mentally, and we want you to acknowledge that. We want you to know that life is no longer as it once was. It is no longer as you perhaps once believed it to be. Know that everything is in harmony with what you desire. So, Where do you want your life to go? Where do you want life to take you? Have you ever thought or considered that much more awaits you when you reflect more and move from the heart? The time has come to retrieve the intentions you had at the beginning of this adventure on Earth. We want you to remember that this is not life as it was meant to be. Time flows from here to there in an almost routine way. Know that everything moves more quickly than in the past, and this has a purpose. There is a purpose, you see, for everything that crosses the threshold of your existence. There is a purpose in everything that moves before you, even if you don't recognize it immediately. Time constraints recognize that time has limitations, because it is fleeting and elusive. What do we mean by this? Each of us has more to offer, but the perception of these time constraints moves us away from, rather than toward, what we desire. Don't settle for less. Instead, strive for more. Recognize that these limitations are mentally constructed, and are not as real as we believe. You see, each day starts anew, so it's not a lack, but a restructuring and reframing that perhaps hasn't been there before. Know this. Know that everything will move in the best possible way when there is a desire to have more. Observe everything in a new way. Affirm and propose that there will be more, because it is what you see that will make more possible. The 9D Arcturian Council, the coming mass awakenings greetings. We are the Arcturian Council. We are delighted to connect with all of you. We are thrilled to be here with you, to guide you, and to offer you our help. We are immensely happy to see more and more people awakening, and we want to assure you that you are part of a human collective that is moving toward a higher dimension, a higher level experience of reality. This means that many of the people you see around you, who are currently asleep, will wake up to the truth of who they really are, and you could be part of that process for them. You might be the one who planted the necessary seeds so that when something happens in their experience, they know to come to you for further explanation. They also have plans with their higher self and their spirit guides, which involve certain experiences that will facilitate their awakening process. Awakening is a process for most people, and doesn't happen all at once. By being exactly who you are setting an example, and paving the way for others around you to also awaken to the truth of who they really are. And in case you don't know what our definition of being awake is, here it is. Being awake means knowing that you are an aspect of source energy, and knowing that everyone else is too. That's it. That's all it takes to qualify as a member of the Awakened Collective. Now, once you know that, of course, you have to live it, and that can be the hardest part for all of you, because you have to let go of many old ideas, old beliefs, old thought patterns, and behaviors that make you believe you are something different, like a mere human being. Now, there's nothing wrong with being a human being, but you all know what we mean by that expression. It's the label that many people attach to themselves and others. They put God, Source, the Ascended Masters, and the Archangels on a pedestal, and see themselves and everyone else as just human beings. And that is exactly what you must change in order to truly embody the Source Energy Self, the divine self that you truly are. Now, with all these awakenings coming, it will be easier for people to accept being part of a larger community known as the Galactic Community or Galactic Family. It will be a stepping stone to allow these extraterrestrials into their lives. And for others, it will be the presence of extraterrestrials that helps them awaken to what they truly are. Because, of course, extraterrestrials know who they truly are and who all of you truly are. So don't worry about being alone in your family or your community as an awakened soul. There will be others who will join you, and soon you'll find yourself with much more in common with your neighbor. In the meantime, keep being yourself, and allow everyone else to join you in your quest to know yourself more deeply as a source energy being. We are the Arcturian Council, and we have enjoyed connecting with you.